Craving the one and only Fong's Pizza? We thought so. Fong's Pizza in Cedar Rapids now delivers. Order direct delivery or curbside pickup from Fong's Pizza by calling 320-9992. All of your Fong's favorites and a Fong's spin on the classics, from their mega pepperoni to the Iowan and street taco. Delivery, takeout, carside to go. Call 320-9992. Fong's Pizza, Newbo District, downtown Cedar Rapids.
Iowans know a thing or two about a hard day's work. That's why we do things the right way at Barntown Brewing. Grain-to-glass beers brewed in-house. Scratch-made food, handcrafted with fresh, locally sourced ingredients. We work hard for the reward of watching our guests enjoy great food and beer. Barntown Brewing. West Des Moines, Waukee.
I'm John Miller. He is Mark Morehouse. This is the Hawkeye Podcast. And, this is the time where I throw up, our Twitter handles on the screen. And I can do that right now. Mark's Twitter handle actually works. My Twitter handle is suspended. It's been suspended now for 2 weeks, Mark. And I'm kind of having withdrawals.
The Elon gang, right? That's the electronic money.
Yeah, so I was on my Hawkeye Podcast account, which I should have just stuck to sports. But Elon Musk ticked me off with some of his hypocrisy relative to saying, we're no longer going to accept Bitcoin for our cars because of the carbon footprint that Bitcoin leaves due to the mining and the electricity consumption. I'm like, but wait, your electricity carbon footprint? I pointed out the hypocrisy of his tweet. Whoa. I had so many replies from the Muscovites, and I kind of wonder if there was some back Reddit room that was like reporting me or something or other. Next thing I know, your Twitter account suspended and I broke zero rules. So I'm 2 weeks in now to the appeal that I sent in, that I followed up with another appeal. It says, this looks like an appeal similar to this one. We'll let you know. Anyhow, hopefully we'll get it resolved. And once we do, I'll just stick to sports.
I asked John out there, everybody, that do you think a human has even touched this yet? And the guess is no. And no. I don't, you just gotta I would pick on Luddites on Twitter. They don't know how to, they don't have a network of people ready to report you so many times. And I imagine, I don't even know how many it takes, probably 6, and you're shut down.
Yeah, I don't know. But you're right. That's a great point, Mark. It said I picked a fight with an alien.
The smartest people on the internet.
Technology. Yes, I created. Yeah. So shame on me. Shame on me.
I always say that there are for sure 2 groups of people I don't want angry at me. The South Park creators, just because they're vicious when they're mad at you.
Yes.
Navy SEALs. I don't want them angry at me at all.
No.
And Elon Muscovites.
Yeah.
Because they'll report me for, picking my nose in the corner.
Yeah. The fighter in me wants to fight, but it's like, what's the point? I want to talk Hawkeye Sports with this account. I'll have another crypto account that I can go after him with that. So basically, Chin from Hawkeye Twitter.
Yeah, he's been throttled. He's been throttled a few times.
Yep, he's been throttled. Iowa River Power Company, looking forward to getting up there. So during this, because Chin and I DM a lot on crypto, we're both, really interested in that space. So from this, we've exchanged cell phone numbers. And now we're texting. So I'll just text with Chin and leave the rest off of Twitter.
It's been a long time since I've talked to Chin, and he hosted us for a couple of beer shares and had a great time.
Mm-hmm.
I watched the Blackhawks lose to the Kings there, and I kept my stuff together pretty well in the playoffs. Great guy. It was interesting watching him go through, as a restaurant manager, go through the COVID. I think he was very, very sensitive to people, and I think the overcorrection was really the smart way to go for anybody in that industry during the pandemic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's a good guy, and I'm looking forward to going up there and breaking some bread with him here in the next month or two when I venture north. All right, let's talk the world of Hawkeye sports over at HawkeyePodcast.com. Mark, what you are undertaking, I think, a bit of a Herculean task, which there are Herculean tasks like the Ferentz 140 thing that you did. That's a whole different level of Herculean compared to this. But what why don't you tell everybody what you're planning on working on the next couple of weeks, months?
Right now working on just going to do sort of position group look at each team in Iowa's schedule. I say position group. On defense, I'm going to go secondary and front seven. So I'm going to cut it down instead of like 3 or 4.
Right.
Two. So run game, passing game, and just right now it's reading to me like a scouting report a little bit. And I'm not getting into scheme. I'm not getting into what the tricks are, but just personnel. What is it? Experience, production. And then all conference and any NFL buzz, credible NFL buzz. For me right now, that's mostly Mel Kiper, and maybe Daniel Jeremiah. If anybody's showing up on those mocks, first round mocks, you get points for that. So it's basically a scoring system, points for production, and then there's also unit points. So for secondaries, oddly enough, okay, here you run into problems. Okay, Penn State, number 1 secondary in the MAC last year. Well, they gave up 262 yards rushing per game, and they played 4 games in the MAC last year. So those stats are oblong. Right. But anyway, it's just a kind of a get to know. It's like a scouting report for what the guy has done and who the guy was. And I also threw in some bonus, not scored, but just bonus info, what their rivals ranking was. So basically, it's get to know the guys who I was going to be playing against, and very, very detailed. It's taking much more longer than I wanted to. I've started the 3rd secondary, and that's Kent State. Kent State will be a quick grade. But after that, some of the information, picking out, I'm rating 5 defensive backs. Some of them it's 3 corners, some it's 3 safeties. Some Iowa State uses the 3-5. So I did they have a really terrific safety last year. If I say his name wrong, please excuse me. Ashim Young, co-defensive player, the freshman player of the year in the Big 12 last year. Cyclone's loaded, but you know who's even more loaded? At least in the 3 teams I've done so far. Holy crap, Indiana. Indiana is defense-centric, defense first, almost under Tom Allen. Defensive backfield is terrific. Got some really great players. Tywan Mullen is probably the best. But reading this, I'm hoping, I don't expect everybody to spend 1 million hours on it. But if you give it a quick once-over, then you're going to have a little bit of a knowledge base for who the hell I was playing next fall.
Right. And I think that's a really good, fun thing to do this time of year because, and we're going to talk about Big Ten win totals here in a little bit because those also came out. And I was listening to some podcasts the other day as I was driving. I was listening to Tom Kakert and Matt Randanzo of the Hawkeye Report podcast. And they also talked about the win totals for Iowa. And I was listening to Tommy go through the games and he was, that's a win. That's a win. And then he got done. I'm like, boy, man, that is the first 2 games. If Iowa can split Indiana and Iowa State, I consider that a big victory. I don't know how you feel about that, but I would consider that a big victory for the Iowa football team for 2021.
I'll use this analogy. That would be Al Pacino in Scarface after he's killed everyone and the blimp goes by and says, "The world is yours." If Iowa goes 1-1, I think the schedule does level out.
It does.
It's a mighty cliff at the beginning, and which, Kirk will be the first one to say that they're not great in September. I mean, Septembers are a challenge for them. That's why they don't schedule Alabama at Lambeau Field. Well, several other reasons, because, they're not in the state of Wisconsin. But that's why they don't have that big cherry in the top game, or one of the reasons why they don't is Kirk doesn't like where his team's at in September. Well, this year, John, I don't even have to rack my brain. I would say this is the toughest first couple games, maybe 2002, Ben Roethlisberger, and then a decent Iowa State team.
Yeah,
a really good Iowa State team.
It's funny you did this because I actually just pulled up the historical scores at jhowell.net, which is one of my go-to shortcuts. And I'm looking back through the years. You talked about 2002. You said 2002. Is that what you said?
Yeah.
That was Akron and Miami of Ohio.
Ooh, then 2001. When did they?
2000 was Kansas State and Western Michigan. 2001 was Kent State and Miami. 2002 was Akron, Miami. 2003 was Miami and Buffalo. 2004 was Kent State, Iowa State. I mean, so I'm seeing Ball States, Montana, Northern Illinois, Maine, Northern Iowa, Eastern Illinois. I'm up to 2011 now. Tennessee Tech, that game that got, paused by the rain, which just funked the whole season, in my opinion. This is easily the toughest two-game start of the Ferentz era. And I think we're going to have to go back to the Hayden Fry years when they played maybe Miami of Florida early on. So in
closed circuit.
In 1992, Iowa started out against NC State in the Kickoff Classic. I think that was a fumble return for a touchdown along with that one.
Dan McGuire?
Yes. Yep. And then Miami of Florida was their game 2, and Miami was at 11-1 that year.
Then you're right. That would be it.
NC State went 9-3-1. So we got to go back to 1992, and before then, we're probably talking early 80s when Iowa played like UCLA, back when UCLA was really good, in Nebraska and Michigan sometimes. 1987, they had Tennessee and Arizona, but Arizona wasn't good. That wasn't really it was a 4-4-3 Arizona team. I'm belaboring this point right now, but I'm just curious. 81, it went Nebraska, then a 500 Iowa State team, then UCLA. I mean, this is not Ferentz's creation. This Indiana game being the first game of the season, that is not something I'm guaranteed that I would wager Kirk asked for.
No, and the 2002 I was thinking, John, was at Miami of Ohio. We had a 3-for-1. All three of those games included Ben Roethlisberger. Iowa got a hell of a deal on that. So they went into Miami of Ohio, the hottest game I've ever covered anywhere ever. Iowa won 29-20. What was it? 29-24.
Yeah, they sat on the ball the last drive. Freddie ran it out.
Fred was hurt that game, I believe. Everybody was covered in ice getting on the bus. And then the next week they had Iowa State, with Seneca Wallace. So I think those two games, that wasn't an opener. You had Akron at the beginning.
Right.
But I'm just thinking 2 games in a row at the beginning of the season. 2002 jumps out to me. This year, I mean, just this cold start, I think you're right. You go back to 1992 for sure. I remember that game. I didn't cover it, but I remember the game in 1992. It was at was it Jets or Giants Stadium? East Rutherford.
East Rutherford, yeah.
NC State was decent, and then Miami, Ohio. That game was on closed circuit television in Iowa City, and I don't know how in the hell I was in grad school and I watched it. It almost was black and white. Just a strange deal. Back before networks wrote checks for television, football, college football games. Right. But yeah, I think this is definitely hard to start, and I think I don't want to read anything. I don't want to play Chicken Little or read anything into this, but obviously Indiana's probably got a little bit of a vendetta for Tabarda for the sort of the snub they got in the postseason, and then. Iowa State, John. I think this is a huge. This is to me. This is all the Bears. I'm going back to Bears camp, and every Bears camp when I covered back in the early '90s, Dave Wamstead said, "Yeah, the pieces are in place for a Super Bowl." He didn't in place. I think this is a legit year where the pieces are in place for Iowa State.
Yep, I don't disagree whatsoever. If not this year, when? I think that Matt Campbell could have had his pick of whatever jobs were open last year. I think he knows he has an opportunity to do something this year that's not been ever done.
Generational,
absolutely, statue type stuff. And we'll see how the Iowa football program operates post Chris Doyle, post summer of 2000 on the recruiting trail. That book is still being written. We don't know how that's going to play out. And if Iowa State puts a good old thumping on Iowa or even beats them, and Campbell takes the reins this year and actually lives up to their promise and makes it to, maybe into the playoff. Campbell's one of my good friends that I, spent a lot of time with in West Des Moines when we moved up there back in 2005. His son plays for Iowa State right now. And we've chatted just about Matt Campbell and the culture of the Iowa State football program and coaches. And this guy is a lifelong Hawkeye fan, like diehard, lifelong Hawkeye fan. And he's just blown away by Campbell, the Iowa State coaches, the culture of the program there. Listen, I'm not sitting here chicken little, the sky's falling. Iowa football program is ready to return to the 1970s, because it's not. And I don't want it to happen. I'm just saying that Campbell's a good coach, and I think he's got a really healthy and attractive culture in Ames. So it's not just default good kid from Iowa, the state, is going to go to Iowa City to play football. I mean, I think there's some things like that, in the air, in the balance potentially right now.
I hear you, and I will chicken little this, because why not? It's May. Let's have some fun. Let's piss everyone off. I'm just kidding. This is not the goal, but this could play out. Just hear me. 42-7 Iowa State beats Iowa. 11 or 12 wins. Iowa State wins let's say they win the Big 12 and get in the Final Four.
Mm-hmm.
Brian Kelly at Notre Dame. How long you think? The clock's ticking. Ticking. And then here's another name who I think is going to get canned. Jim Harbaugh. There's going to be a couple of hell of openings at the end of this year. Matt Campbell will have put up probably. He's got the team on paper right now. I'm going to say generational year for Iowa State potentially. Right. If he hits all those marks, kid from Ohio, going to be really hard to say no. But, he's kind of to me, I don't know which way he would go. I don't know him at all. I've not covered him at all. But it kind of just feels for me from a distance a little bit like Ferentz in Iowa City. He's got a place where he can manage expectations fairly well. I think Iowa State fans are appreciative of the possibilities of this season and the fact that Campbell got him to this point. I think they love that. And I think Campbell's will always have a job in Ames, no matter, I don't think they'll slip to 2-10 again. I don't think they'll, who was the coach who so animated? Paul Rhodes. I don't think they'll Paul Rhodes it, go to a bowl game and go back to 2-10. That's not happening. I think Campbell's got that going. Now, can he say no to the Blue Bloods, where it would be easier, higher expectations, more money, Michigan and Notre Dame. Notre Dame's talent, by the way, has taken off. I mean, Scott was doing a thing with The Athletic the other day. The tight end U, and I think he kind of yielded the floor to the Notre Dame group. Now, I'm not just saying it's just Notre Dame at tight end, but they've been cranking out old linemen. So they've gotten some of the Bulagas who would have maybe gone to Iowa. There's probably one or two guys that they got that may have gone to Iowa. So I think it's easier to coach and easier to recruit at places like Notre Dame and Michigan. It's harder, to bring great talent to Iowa State, but I think, Campbell's shown he can do it, and it's comfortable there. He's got I don't know how many kids he has, young family, I assume. Mm-hmm. It's attractive, and I don't know what he'll do, but he's going to have a hell of an opportunity. And I think Iowa State has so much on the table this year. I'm not predicting 42-7 over Iowa, just FYI. I think it's going to be a great game. I'm not sure Iowa will be able to run the ball like people think they can. Iowa State gets after it on defense. All their defensive backs have tackles for loss. It's kind of mind-blowing.
Well, and Iowa State will play the style that I believe Iowa's zone scheme is susceptible to. and that is the secondary, the line of players behind the defensive line. Iowa State's going to have a 3-man front, and then that little shell back behind them, the 3-3-5. But they'll cheat people down, and they'll take those 45-degree angles with the flow and shoot those gaps that Wisconsin's done forever. I don't need to go on a zone scheme rant this early in the scheme of all things, but I don't disagree with anything you said. Campbell's 41 years old. This is his 4th year at Iowa State. They won 7 games and they won 8, and they won 8 games his first year, I think, then 7 games, and then last year they went 9-3, and they made it to the Fiesta Bowl. So he's already done things that Iowa State's never done.
Yes,
and if Iowa State does live up to the promise this year, it's going to be – I don't even know if I would compare it to Ferentz in 2003 or 2004 with the NFL overtures or other job overtures, because Kirk was following in the footsteps of Fry. Fry is the statue guy. Dan McCarney might have a statue somewhere because Dan meant a lot, still means a lot to Iowa State. But if Campbell and Iowa State live up to the hype this year, Campbell could be there for life. He's making $3.5–4 million right now, which is good money. But you're right, Mark. He'll have his pick of whatever job opening there is in college football, period. And I think he'd be a great fit in Michigan. That place needs a scrubbing, a culture scrubbing. I think Michigan's playing chicken right now, and they don't want to fire Harbaugh because they're in an $83,000 deficit budget from COVID. They don't want to pay the additional. Harbaugh doesn't want to leave because he wants to buy out. So they just signed up for another year of misery because of financial reasons. Because I don't think Harbaugh's
great?
Yeah. I think the Harbaugh clan would like to move on, but he wants to get paid. So it's a game of everybody loses chicken. And I think Campbell would kick butt up there. I do. So and not that there's a lot of Iowa State fans listening to this. I don't wish them any will. I think he's a heck of a coach. I think he's a heck of a motivator. And I think he is someone that creates healthy culture. So if he leaves, I hope it's to Notre Dame as opposed to a Michigan or someplace in the Big Ten. And sure, get out of Ames.
Did you notice last fall after Wisconsin just dump trucked Michigan, when Michigan had the choice, or when it was able to press its COVID numbers? Oh, hey, Ohio State, I got a tummy ache. Oh, Iowa, screw that. My head hurts. So
Absolutely.
That's hard. I think they chickened out. I think that is a crap program, and I want Harbaugh to get all his just dessert. It's not Michigan as much as Harbaugh. I think
you're right.
He's garbage.
You're right. I agree with that. I'm not a big Harbaugh guy either. Speaking of Harbaugh, I'm going to pull something up here on a screen share. Where are you at? That window. There we go. And for those of you that are listening, we'll be spelling this out. So DraftKings released their win totals this past week. Win totals are, also known as over-unders. And I think you can get down on these. And really, if you're of that persuasion, these getting on things early sometimes is better. We'll get to Michigan here in a second. But let's go in alphabetical order, Mark. And, I don't know if you've done this or not, but
I have not.
I'm not going to consider this our on-the-record predictions.
Okay.
This is just kind of first blush without having done all the research on the teams that both of us will do. Illinois' win total, 3.
I'm over, man.
I'm over. I think Bielema, I think Brett has a chance to create some good winning culture in Champaign. I do.
I think he does right away because he's from there. He knows it. I think, let me see what the schedule is. Nebraska, UTSA, Maryland will be tough. Virginia will be tough. Purdue will be tough. Charlotte, I already see 4 wins on here.
Right.
I think they beat Nebraska. They'll beat Rutgers. They'll give Minnesota a hell of a game. And then Northwestern. Bielema, that's tone-setting time. And let's be honest, Bielema kicks ass at that. He was made to set the tone. Now, can he
Right.
sustain? Can he sustain? He did at Wisconsin, but then, Barry's kind of the puppet master up there. He did not at Arkansas. I think Bielema was perfect hire. All of a sudden, Illinois football is like, okay, are they going to be like old Iowa? Are they going to be, because that's Bielema's DNA. Bielema's DNA is offensive line, defensive line, Hayden style, which if you look at Hayden style, the exotics were like 2% of what happened. So this is going to be
trenches.
It's going to be ground chuck, and I am high on. I'm over the 3 wins.
Yeah, I would buy Illinois stock if it was available. Alphabetically next, Iowa at 8.5. To me, this was one of the easiest decisions I made. I took under. I think 8's the number.
I think I would also go under. I think 8 is probably the number, but also it could be 7. So I would go under for 2.
So, but let's go through this real quick. We just got done talking about Iowa's first 2 games. You've got Indiana, you've got Iowa State. I think Iowa's chances of going 2-0 or 10%. I think Iowa's chances of going 1-1, probably 40% against. I'm sorry, 60% against, 40% for.
I'm there.
And then Iowa going 0-2, I think 35-40%. So that's why I would be tickled at 1-1.
Yep.
And then you got Kent State and Colorado State, so there's 2 wins.
Yep.
You got Miami, or Maryland rather, on the road
at Maryland.
It's a night game. We're talking
on a Friday.
We're talking about times coming up on a Friday. Iowa has Colorado State the week before, which is, Colorado State is not just some pushover, historically.
I don't think they were very good last year.
Right. I'm gonna say a win, but that is not. So right now I've got like two locks. I'm not going to say Maryland's a lock. And you got Penn State at home. I think Iowa beats this Penn State team at home, but it's hardly a lock. Then you have Purdue at home. I mean, I don't need to remind you guys how much of, how Purdue schemes very well against Iowa and how they still have David Bell on the team. And you're at Wisconsin. That's a loss. You're at Evanston. I mean, that's the defending West champ.
That's a
right
tough
there.
game. That's a tough game.
It's a big time tough game. And then you've got Minnesota at home. I think they win that game. Then you've got Illinois at home, rock fight win. And then you're at Nebraska. I don't see 9 wins. I see 8 if I squint not too badly. I think 7 or 8's the number.
Okay, let's go 50-50 games. Just Indiana, Iowa State. Those are 50-50 games. I'm going to put Maryland in there.
I don't think Iowa State's a 50-50 game.
I'm going to say 50-50 just for now. I do. Okay. I would say it's more. I would say the Cyclones will be favored by maybe 2 scores. Which, if you look in this rivalry, that's never. Rare. I would be shocked if. I wouldn't be surprised if Iowa was still the favorite, just because that's the way it always goes in this game, no matter what.
Yeah,
but I'm going to go 50-50. I'm just going to go games that I think are 50-50. Indiana, Iowa State. I think I'm going to put Maryland in there. I'm going to put Penn State in there. I'm going to put Purdue in there. I'm going to put Wisconsin, Northwestern. Minnesota wants it to be a 50-50 game. I don't think it is yet for Minnesota. And the last 3 games, I think Iowa probably gets healthy. But that stretch, Maryland, Penn State, Purdue, Wisconsin, Northwestern, that's the season in my mind.
All right, so there's Iowa's. Indiana at 8. I took the over, but I think that number is on it. I think 8 is on it when you look at their schedule.
You're at 8. Okay. I'm with you at Penn State. I think Michigan State, kind of a pretender. They've got Ohio State, Maryland. I want to say push. And that's still going to be good for Indiana football.
Yeah, 8 wins. I mean, Indiana fans line up for 8 wins. Maryland's number is 5.5, and I took the under. They start the season out at home against West Virginia. Then they play the Howard Bison. Then they're at Illinois, Kent State at home. So Howard and Kent State, let's give them wins. Then Iowa, Ohio State, that's a loss. They're at Minnesota, that's a loss. I mean, I see that. And then Rutgers at the end of the year, road. I mean, Maryland 5.5 under might feel like the lock of this whole list.
I thought Maryland improved last year. I think that coach is probably going to be under. I think they're set up well, but that schedule, man, alive. I think you're right. I think under.
Now, we'll see if Tua's brother, he's still Tua's brother, if he becomes a better passer this year. I mean, they have fangs. They're not entirely without fangs. Here's Michigan. All right, their over-under is 8. Here's their schedule. Start the year out, Western Michigan at home, then Washington from the Pac-12 at home, Northern Illinois at home, Rutgers at home, and then they go to Camp Randall for their first road game on October the 2nd. Then they're at Nebraska, bye week. Then they've got Northwestern at home, at Michigan State, Indiana at home, at Penn State, at Maryland, at Ohio State. I took the under, but I took the under only because of what we just kind of talked about, Mark, and that's the Harbaugh stench factor.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go over just because Michigan can win games. They've got players. I don't like their head coach, but they have players. And that schedule, I think Michigan. I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt over games against teams like Indiana. Mm-hmm. I mean, a program like Indiana, Northwestern, was Minnesota on their schedule?
On
Michigan?
On Michigan's schedule? No, it's not. Here's their schedule right here. I'm going to pull all these up.
So Indiana, I think Indiana for Michigan is a tough one. I'm sorry, I'm not able to find Michigan's schedule, but
yeah. Can you see it on the screen share that I have up?
I can't. That doesn't come up for me. But
too small. Okay.
Yeah. Let me Google real quick. To me, I think games like Indiana for Michigan, just not going to work. Let's see. Okay, there won't be anything left of Michigan after it goes to Wisconsin. Nebraska for Michigan. I sweat that for Michigan. Mm-hmm. Washington will crush Michigan. Mm-hmm. Northwestern at Michigan. Okay. Michigan's going to show up that day and think, okay, it's just Northwestern, yada, yada. Northwestern's going to be playing that game with blood in its eyes. Michigan State, it's at Michigan State. That makes me worry for Michigan. Yeah, I think the swing games for Michigan, whether or not they hit 8, probably Northwestern, Indiana. And to me, those games,
right,
50-50s.
Right. I sent you a link, Mark, that you might want to pull up because you can kind of click on these everybody's name.
I'm doing that. I got it.
That's where you went to. Yeah,
that's the one I'm on.
FBschedules.com is my go-to. Next up is Michigan State. Their win total is 4, and looking at their schedule, they're at Northwestern, then Youngstown at home. They are at Miami Hurricanes, then Northwestern at home, then Western Kentucky at home, at Rutgers, at Indiana, Michigan, at Purdue, Maryland, at Ohio State, and Penn State. Boy, I don't see. I mean, Western Kentucky, Youngstown State. There's a couple of wins, but outside of that, I don't know that I see any other guaranteed wins on their schedule.
I'm thinking about the September 25th game, Michigan State, Nebraska at Michigan State. Mm-hmm. And I'm remembering that last, I think it was a 10-7. I think it snowed. I don't want to hit anybody too hard for a game that lacked offense that was in the snow. But I don't want to watch this game. I actively don't want to watch this game. I think these are two programs that keep building up the Jenga, and then they get Jenga'd out. And I think that this game probably very important for Scott Frost. Would you not agree?
Absolutely very important for Scott Frost, and we'll get to let's just go to Nebraska's schedule right here, then we'll come back and talk about Minnesota here in a second.
Sure.
Nebraska is at Illinois. Then they have Fordham and Buffalo back to back, and then they're at Oklahoma. So let's just give them the benefit of the doubt and say that they're 3-1 after this.
Sure.
There's that Michigan State game that you're talking about.
Yeah,
I think the direction and tenor of the whole season rests on that Michigan State game for maybe both programs.
And those next four games at Michigan State, Northwestern, Michigan, at Minnesota, which is that's going to be a 50-50 game for Nebraska for a while.
Minnesota's been
I think Purdue's a 50-50 game, and then they're going to get killed by Ohio State. So look at that next 6 games after Oklahoma for what was it? I'm going under. I'm going under 6.
It was 4. Yeah. So after they play Michigan State, they've got Northwestern, Michigan, at Minnesota, Purdue, Ohio State, at Wisconsin, and Iowa. Good luck.
Under.
Yeah.
Under. Maybe that's a stronger under for me, John, than Maryland.
And if Scott Frost, what is this? Is this year 3? This will be year 3? Yeah, yes. Year 3 and another sub 500 season. I mean, I don't even know if Stephen M. Sipple can tolerate something like that.
I don't want to chicken little it too much, but it is Nebraska. And if I'm Scott Frost, then maybe I start to look for some buds in the NFL.
Yeah, exactly. Start making a few calls. Minnesota's number is 7. They start out the year hosting Ohio State. Congrats.
Ouch.
Then they host Miami of Ohio. Then they're at Colorado. And Colorado, mixed baggish.
Yeah. They can get that game.
Yeah. Bowling Green and then at Purdue. So, maybe they could come out of that 3-2 in their first 5. Then they have a bye week. Then it's the game against Nebraska. There's Maryland, at Northwestern, Illinois, at Iowa, at Indiana, and Wisconsin. I kind of have a feeling that their number is around 7 or 6. So I'm taking the under since, I don't allow pushes.
Let me.
You didn't know that.
I did.
Yeah, I don't allow pushes.
I did. I won't do another one. Let me see. Okay. 1, 2, 3. I'm going to give them 4, 5. I'm going to go under 2, and it's close, though.
Yep, it's close.
I'm going to say, to me, the Holy Grail, and I'm not saying this because I covered Iowa, and this is the HawkeyePodcast.com. To me, I think the golden calf on Minnesota's whatever list you want to say it is, hate list. Let's say hate list because it is Minnesota. Is Iowa. I've told Iowa fans on Twitter, and I stand by this right now, do not regard Minnesota football. It has not earned your regard. So do not regard it. You own it. Take it out and play with it when it's time, and then put it away for the year. Minnesota has got to beat it. I think Fleck has got to beat Iowa. He's got to beat Iowa one of these days. If he doesn't, the people up there are going to start to get pissy.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. And so where's Minnesota here? I'm curious what they have before their game against Iowa. They have Illinois. So, it's not bad. And Illinois will be a similar style to what, they're going to see for Iowa. More physical play. Northwestern is up next on our round and round. They've got Michigan State in the opener at Evanston.
They'll get them.
Which is a night game, which, I think that sets up well. Then Indiana State and at Duke. Man, how many times these early Duke games that Northwestern schedules, they seems like they lose them more than they win them.
Yep.
And then they have Ohio, then at Nebraska, Rutgers, at Michigan, Minnesota, Iowa, at Wisconsin. That's a stretch. Purdue, and at Illinois. And Northwestern's win total is 6.5. I took the under, but I know I'm making the same mistake that I always make and disregarding or not giving Northwestern enough regard.
6.5 is their number.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going. I think they could start 6-0. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, I think they can start. The hardest game in their first 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I just want to make sure it's 6. It's either Michigan or Michigan State, or it's either Nebraska or Michigan State. Maybe that Duke game, it gets weird for them.
Yeah, see, I did it. I already disregarded them.
So you get 6 in there, and then you're at Michigan. Maybe maybe that plays Harbaugh out, or Michigan gives them a reality sandwich. Either after that, it's Minnesota 50-50 game with Iowa. 50 somehow at Wisconsin. Northwestern is just impenetrable. I think they can get Purdue. I think they can get Illinois. I think Northwestern +6 is money. +6.5 is money.
Yeah. All right. There you go. First divergence. Ohio State. Let me You find an Ohio State here.
Is it even fun to do Ohio State, John?
Well, basically, their number is 11. So they've got to be – here's your bet. Do you think they go 12-0? If so, you take the over. If you think they'll lose one game, then you got to take the under. This is at 11. And since, for the sake of this, if you want to do – I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm not going to do pushes. But, I mean, their games of note, they've got Oregon at home in week 2. And they're at Indiana after a bye week in October. They get Penn State at home. And they go to Michigan, but I mean, I said the under when I wrote this early this week, but now that I look more at it, I'd probably, if you were going to make me bet money on this, I'd probably put a little piece on them going 12-0.
I like your thinking at the under just because they don't have Justin Fields anymore, and I'm sure they have an Avenger behind him ready to roll because that's Ohio State, baby.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to say under because of new quarterback. I think they have the schedule that they could go 12-0.
Yeah, they definitely do. Next up is Penn State. They start the year at Wisconsin. I think that absolutely favors the Badgers.
Absolutely.
Just because the trenches are repeatable. Then Ball State and Auburn. Auburn at home in week 3. Auburn is just one of those 10-2 or 6-6 type programs, but that's a salty one. Then Villanova, then Indiana at home, and then Iowa on the road. So that's 1, 2, 3. That's their first 6 games. What do you think? What do you think they are after game 6? 3-3? 4-2?
I think 4-2. Good. Actually, 3-3. I have them losing to Iowa. And so I have them going under, but I have them in 8 games.
Yeah. Okay. So there you go. I also took the under. Purdue is next up. Let me go here.
Tricky little bugger, Purdue.
They are tricky. And I don't know if the seat is warm for Jeff Brom, but I got to think another year of 5, 6, 7 wins isn't quite what they paid for. And I would be disappointed if I were a Purdue fan, but they start out with a home game against Oregon State, then at UConn, and then at Notre Dame, Illinois at home, and then Minnesota, and then at Iowa, home against Wisconsin, at Nebraska, home against Michigan State, at Ohio State, at Northwestern, and then Indiana. And their over-under number is 5. And
I think they're an under.
Feeling if you're going to make me take one of the two, I think 5 is the number, but I would go under. Yeah. I agree.
New defensive coordinator again. So unsettled on defense. I like their quarter. I think there's a quarterback competition ish.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just vaguely right now, just kind of remembering. I never remember Purdue's running back after Raheem Mostert. I think Purdue this year. I got to go under. That's a tough schedule.
Yeah. It is. Here's a not so tough schedule. Wisconsin, their number's 9.5. Now, again, they start out with Penn State, but I think that really favors Wisconsin. Then Eastern Michigan, then a bye week, and then they play Notre Dame in Soldier Field. But Notre Dame does not factor into the Big Ten championship, but it does factor in the over-unders. Then they have Michigan at home, at Illinois, Army at home, at Purdue, Iowa at home, at Rutgers, Northwestern at home, Nebraska at home, and then Minnesota on the road. So their biggest conference games, their best conference tests, in my opinion, are all at home. So I am taking Wisconsin in the over. I think it's a 10-2 season.
Agree. I think it's a 10-win season. I think Wisconsin. You at 10. I would go it to 10, and that's it. But I think they get it. I think they'll have I think the Iowa game will be tough for them. You look at that back half of the schedule. Northwestern, they have them at home, like you said, all the stuff they have at home. I don't think Purdue can get them. I think they're upset proof, John. That's why I say 10.
Yeah, that's their program. That's what they've built. It's not like they haven't been tested against some. Was it BYU a few years ago? they can be scared, but they seldom lose that. Wasn't it Northern Iowa even maybe 3 or 4 years ago?
Yeah, pushed them a little bit.
That pushed them. It's a good way to put it. Pushed them a little bit. Let's go then next to. There's been some game times released.
Oh yeah.
This week, and pull this up real quick and share it with those of you watching the video. So we know these times for Iowa's football games. Indiana in week 1 is going to be a 2:30 kick on the Big Ten Network. I thought that had the possibility for a night game, but 2:30 in the afternoon, Indiana. And then the next week against Iowa State, also Mark, a 2:30 kick. That one on ABC, and I just keep getting those 2005 vibes running through my head.
Take it easy in that right now. Oh, hey, no, it's totally different, John.
You picked 42-9.
No.
About?
It's way different, John, this year in that I think Iowa State's going to be the hunted.
Yes. Yeah, I was more thinking vibes of being there that day, and Iowa swimming uphill against a 50-mile-an-hour wind. I mean,
yes. That whole game was Iowa going down the drain.
Oh boy, yeah.
From like the second snap.
Yeah,
and it was just swirl, plump.
Tate taking himself out with the header when he was trying to tackle a guy. I called that when he was tracking the play. I'm like, he's gonna hurt himself. Kablam! Yeah,
he hurt himself.
Yeah, he hurt himself. Enter Jason Manson, who we'll talk about here in a little bit. Also known kickoff time, Kent State 2:30 on the Big Ten Network. That's the theme warning.
Make that a throwback uni game, right?
I hope so.
It's time for the old Herky to fly.
That would be fantastic.
I'm down with that.
Yeah, that would be. I would like that. So 3 of the first 4 games, or Kent State game number 3 even, are going to be 2:30 kicks. Mark, 2:30 kicks.
We're back to the 2:30. There's another 2:30 Purdue. I think, John, we're back to the 2:30 being sort of the showcase.
Yeah, I think
which
you're right.
Takes us back to the Keith Jackson days. 2:30 was big up until the night games started hitting the Big Ten.
Yep.
Now the 7 o'clock. I think that the night television games changed the trajectory, the financial trajectory of college football. Mm-hmm. And I think I cannot believe The Athletic hasn't done a huge ass story on that, because if you look from last time Iowa was not on television, John, was 2001 Minnesota game.
Yep.
Since then, the TV dollars have come in. Every game is on television. The night games, I think, they're the floor. That's what everybody wants. That's what you want your program under that light. 2:30 is coming back. 2:30. I think the Big Ten, if you're a Big Ten football fan and you don't like the 11 o'clock kickoff, you need to write Urban Meyer a thank you note, because he got to Ohio State and he's like, 11 o'clock? What time are we going to have recruits in? I mean, and it was a big thing, part of his recruiting. He's like, you know what? Anytime we get a chance to say no to 11, say no. And so Ohio State, I think, you can kind of one hand how many games they played under Urban Meyer at 11 o'clock. So I think that put the 11 o'clock game on the endangered species list. And I think all fans are kind of like, you know what? Not a bad thing.
Right. The Maryland games, an FS1 7 p.m. kick.
I love FS1.
I don't. No, because the first half they run the NFL commercial. After there's a kickoff, they take a commercial like the NFL does.
I don't like that, but I do like the production. I like the production.
Okay,
production,
all right. From technical, sure, yes, but I share with you why I don't like it. The Penn State game is listed as to be determined, but it's going to be on Fox or Fox Sports 1. I mean, that game screams for a 7 p.m. Kinnick, does it not? I mean,
I would agree.
Like Iowa Penn State 7 o'clock Kinnick Stadium. That's just how it is.
It'll be a good game, and let's see if last year's mojo for the Hawkeyes over Penn State was real. James Franklin's had Ferentz's number.
He has. They had some quarterback mojo that wasn't working last year. 2:30 for Penn State, 11 for Wisconsin. Channel to be determined, and then Nebraska big Black Friday at 12:30.
Notice the only 11 o'clock game is the Keystone Light Bowl in Madison. or the Busch Light Bowl, whichever cheap beer you want to throw in there. 11 o'clock, get out of bed early, boys and girls, because
that's surprising to me that a game that might potentially decide the division championship, you've got that already at 11 o'clock. So nobody wanted to bid on that one, apparently, from any of the networks, because the TV network is still to be determined. So ABC, FS1, they didn't put that on their table for bids.
Interesting. You don't see that very often. And that late in the season, maybe they're kind of holding on to trying to make it, if this Iowa-Wisconsin game isn't division championship relevant, something happened. I don't know what.
Yeah.
But somebody got hurt.
Something happened, then it's deserving of 11.
Yes, exactly. And but the network thing, that's weird.
Yeah, that's weird that game didn't get snapped up. So that'll probably wind up being on one of the ABC owned networks. The aforementioned Jason Manson, former mostly backup quarterback for the Iowa football team, somewhere around 03, 04, 05, 06-ish. I think he was the starter of the Stand, the game known as The Stand at Syracuse. I'm sure that you were out there, Mark, in the Carrier Dome for that.
I was. The Carrier Dome smelled like remember Iowa's old bubble?
Yes.
It smelled like sweat because you sweat on the carpet and they never change the carpet. That's what the Carrier Dome smelled like. I don't know what it is now, actually. I said Carrier Dome. Then it was the Carrier Dome. I don't know what it is now. But
was it hot?
It was hot as hell.
And that was a dome named after an air conditioning company.
Yeah, it was hot and stinky. And great game. I think Jason Manson, 4 interceptions. And I think him and Gary Snook are the only Hawkeyes to throw in 4 interceptions and win a game.
That is a fantastic trivia question, but yes, that game. How many? How did the Stand go? Iowa stopped them, but then there was penalties, so it was almost like a 6-down stand.
It was like I think it was 7 or 8 from inside the 5, maybe 9.
Oh my gosh,
because there were a couple of pass interference penalties. But Mitch King led that. That 2007. Defensive front was really underrated. It was Mitch King and Matt Kroll they were freshmen and they were kind of not freshmen. They were sophomore juniors by then. So they were fully functional. Brian Madison was a really good player. That defense was sneaky good. The offense, they had problems. But Jason
Tate had the ribs.
It was the
or
rib,
the oblique?
Oblique. That's
the
what
oblique,
it was.
yeah.
Yep. And I think we found that out Friday night. Rumor started, and
yes.
I think Iowa was a 20-point favorite. And I think anybody who had that info probably did okay.
Mm-hmm. Back before we had the casinos,
yeah, exactly.
Somebody called me that night. I'll keep them nameless, but yes, that was interesting. But by all accounts, and you interacting with him a lot more than I did, Mark, he seemed, from the outside looking in, like a really, really good dude.
He didn't transfer. He's a guy, quarterback. Came to Iowa, I think, mostly different shaped quarterback. He was really skinny kid, more kind of a dual threat, kind of caught in that dual threat or passer mode. And, when you're kind of get this whiff that you're going to be a career backup, usually you get a little restless and you start, where the hell can I play? And you want to go play. I never sensed that with Jason, and obviously, the program's hired him, and he left a good impression. And I do like the program going and getting, Liddell Betts to be the running backs coach, Jason Manson being in there, Broderick Binns being in there. I really agree, because the players who went through it are the ones who I think can best articulate what it is like to be an Iowa football player. And to me, I think Jason kind of gets it. Anybody who's been 5 years and didn't get the big payoff of starting much or really getting out there much, it shows a lot of fortitude. And a lot of guys end up if I'm building a football team, my head coach was probably a second string quarterback. Those guys, look at Peterson at Philadelphia, although that didn't turn out very well at the end, but they did get a Super Bowl. But backup quarterbacks, man, I always thought Stanzi, really smart guy about the game. I mean, he knew so much, and he devoted 1,000,000 hours to it. And then just talking to him, every Friday for 2 or 3 years, or every Tuesday, I'm like, dude, you got to use this information. I'm sure you'll end up in some coaching thing, but
right.
The guys, the second string quarterbacks, you don't want them around your program because they have humility and they know how it works.
Mm-hmm. Well said. And another item that popped up this week, not football related, but definitely Hawkeye related. Jordan Bohannon announced that he was going to return for his 6th year for the Iowa basketball program. Iowa in great need of a shooter, so I think that will work out quite well. Jordan, 24 years old, found himself this past week. I'm not even sure what night it was. Found himself downtown Iowa City. I'm sure some of you have seen the video of Jordan being knocked out, and Jordan holding a cell phone camera up and recording. It looked like he was recording somebody. I'm not sure if he was or not, but it was a situation. The video that I saw was about probably around 35, at least 40 seconds worth of talking. You couldn't hear what they said because the video was being shot from about 15 feet away. But it seemed like there were opportunities to for someone to decide that they wanted to de-escalate things.
There's the word.
Yeah, there was no cognizant choice to de-escalate. And the next thing, Jordan was hit in the head, and he was on the ground. And I don't know what was said. I don't know who started it. I don't know why. Don't know any of that. I do know, though, that, and while these athletes are not robots, and they just did come through COVID when they were forced to be in bubbles and things like that, at some point in time, you kind of got to remember what you're told day one when you get on campus. Not a lot of good's probably going to come from going uptown when you're an athlete. You got to watch your back. You need to have a wingman. I don't know. I think that this was an avoidable incident on several fronts.
100% agree. This is something you think happens to a first year, or right. a guy who's just went through his first school year and is now going into his first summer in Iowa City. You expect that, the Paulas, you expect a mistake here and there, and that, like Tristan with the moped and, 17 people right. or whatever on it. You expect young person's judgment, errors in judgment, right?
Right.
My son is in Iowa City. He's 21. He did not punch Jordan. Jordan would probably kick the shit out of him, but it's not something that happens to not something you want to see happen to a 6-year senior. It's not something you want to see happen to somebody. Right. A video of somebody getting knocked out anymore. Yeah, I used to watch that stuff and laugh and yada yada yada. Yeah, 54 now. I don't want to see people hurt. It just gives me a bit of a chill. Now, was he talking shit? Did he deserve it? Was it a sucker punch? I'm not the referee. I think just use better judgment. What the hell are you doing in DC's? I went to a Blackhawks Stanley Cup game in 2010 there. I went down with Brendan. Brendan Stiles, and we watched the Blackhawks lose to the Flyers. And I ran into Nate Kading on the way down and said, "Hey, Nate, how's it going?" And all of a sudden, it's a Tuesday night in May, and there it is, a full-out punch him in the face fight, like 10 feet from Nate and I. And it was a great fight. I'm sitting there watching, and like, it's Tuesday. It's not even 10 o'clock, and there's a fight. So Iowa City, this was several years ago. This was 2010. Iowa City was the Wild West before that. Iowa City was the Wild West when I was there going to Joe's in grad school in 1990. Beardless, by the way, then. And then, you have a senior who's really a focal point for the basketball team just doing that. And then it goes to social media, and then it's an Iowa State thing too. Somehow I don't get that at all.
Well, listen, Jordan's run his mouth. I like it.
Absolutely.
I don't begrudge Jordan for making choices to go live his life or run at people on Twitter. If they're running at him, knock yourself out. Sorry, I didn't mean to say that, but
pun not intended.
Honestly, was not intended. But mistakes were made.
Yes.
Before the altercation even happened. At some point in time, you got to extricate yourself from issues. In trading, you plan your trade and you trade your plan. You kind of got to have a plan when you're an athlete or even non-athletes. Go uptown, rugby team shows up. That's my cue to get the hell out. Go uptown, a scuffle happens. I'm going over here. I don't know.
If you wrestle 142 and Ed Horton and Roy Marble show up, get the hell out. Get out. That's not for you. That's not for you.
One of the biggest, greatest urban. It's probably happened.
It's true. It's all true.
But the Horton basketball versus wrestlers at the old Capitol Mall story from, I don't know, circa 1988 or something. All true. Isn't that something you've wanted to do an oral history on?
Absolutely. And if I can talk him into, I'll get my friend Eric Hennigan. He runs the Black and Yellow Gold site, and he was a former wrestler. I met him in grad school in Iowa City. Great guy. He was not a wrestler you'd know, but he was on the team. He's more of an unattached wrestling guy, and I think he made a few varsity matches. Anyway, fully invested from Hawaii. Walked on from Hawaii. He knows all the stories. He knows a lot of the guys too. And I was gonna, if I spent this summer at the Gazette, that would have been my summer deal, and I would have poured everything into it. But I'm not. So maybe sometime we can get Eric on, and he can just kind of just give us the general overlay.
Got to have him on. We'll get a 3-camera thing going, and just try and pull stories out of him. I would love to hear, because that one is legend. That is legendary. If you were anywhere in the area at that time, you were in school. I was, probably 17, 18 years old at that time, and that everybody heard about it. But there was no internet. There were no cell phone cameras.
Yeah, exactly.
So it only lived through the oral history and the retelling of the event. So it would be fantastic to get somebody on who was at least one relationship connected away from that happening. Probably Eric spoke to an eyewitness of this.
I think he was in. I think he might have been. I don't know if he was in or not, because I don't think that he was not he was not. When I talked to him about it for the story, I said, dude, I want to know what you guys were, cologne you were wearing. I want to know what music you were listening to, because to me, it was a culture of number one. Iowa wrestling was number freaking one. Iowa basketball was number freaking one. And imagine all the testosterone that was bubbling up. Rugby shirts, polo, Drakkar. I'll bet it was an 80s nightmare of fashion. Mullets, mullets were there totally. And I go back to that basketball poster from that team with BJ Armstrong wearing the fur coat. I think the record skipped for the Iowa sports community when that poster came out. I think it's one of the most iconic things that's been produced by the athletics department.
Yeah.
If you look at that, you go, all right. These African-American guys can be at home here and do whatever and just be. And I think that there was a lot of cultural vibe with that basketball team then. And you look at Peoria and you look at Detroit, basketball rock star places, and that really all came together in that team. And then the wrestlers, number one, Kistler brothers, all kinds of Royce and Rico. I think Royce and Rico Chiapparelli. That would have been for sure. If I were writing that would have been a huge chapter. Just Royce and Rico.
Royce Alger.
Yes.
Yeah, actually, my business partner, his wife is cousins, so I probably could pull some strings and get some stories out of that. I mean, just talking about these times, what a freaking I think the renaissance the Iowa athletic department's having right now with the success across multiple sports teams is probably the peak since then collectively. But I would say this: you talked about the 142-pound. Jaden Ironman, Iowa's 141 pounder. He's coming back, and everybody's coming back for the wrestling team that just won the national championship. Who do you mean? I've always said this: 141 pounder. I don't care. I would take that guy over Ed Horton in a fight. I'm taking the wrestler. Because most every fight I've ever seen, when people are squared up, ends in a wrestling match.
Yeah, right. Ed could punch you, and he could be across the room from you.
True.
Reach, man, reach. Look at hockey. Zdeno Chara. No one can get in that kitchen. No one's getting in that kitchen. He's 6'9", 7'2" on skates. If I'm on the ice with Zdeno Chara, I'm calling him sir because I'm 5'11".
Yeah, that's great.
So reach Ed Horton against a wrestler.
I'm taking the wrestler.
I'm taking Eddie Horton. The wrestler ain't getting in that kitchen. Although
Ed Horton's swing is coming back. That wrestler, he's sprawling on shoots all the time. They're like, what is that? Is it the mongoose that can like outdo a cobra because it's got faster reflexes?
Right.
I'm telling you, Ed Horton comes in like that. Wrestler's down. Single leg drive through, double leg even. Horton's out. Give me the wrestler. I had a DM going with Tyler Kluver of the Washed Up Walk-Ons a few months ago when on their podcast they were talking. Kluve maybe still thinks that he could get out from the bottom position against Spencer Lee. And I'm like, Kluve's 195, 200. He's pretty strong.
He's built. Yeah,
he has his fitness and health business. I'm actually going to DM him when I'm done this. I want to do his June fasting challenge. And I said, Kluve, you're not getting out. You are not getting out.
I would pay to see that.
Spencer Lee will put you in a world of hurt. He'll sink those legs in, get the grapevine. You're done. You're not getting out. And that's not me knocking Tyler. Tyler's, he'd kick my butt. Mm-hmm. I'm just saying, give me the wrestlers. Every time.
There's something to be said for power, though. Ed Horton did break a guy's neck at a game.
Dude, that was Jay Burson, the smallest guy that ever played point guard for Ohio State.
Hey, it counts. Broken neck, man. Put it on the board.
You know what? You've heard us talking. You listen to this podcast. You can at least find Mark on Twitter still at Mark Morehouse.
Come and say hi.
Tweet, and I have a John Miller in Exile account at John D. Miller, JOND Miller. Not really active as much right now, but who knows? That might have to be where I resurface. When Mark tweets out the episode of this podcast, Mark, put the at John D. Miller handle at it. And those of you that are listening to this, come find that and tweet at Mark, tweet at me. Who do you think is winning? Who do you think's winning a fight between Jaden Ironman and Ed Horton in his prime? Who do you think? Do you think Tyler Kluver is getting out in 2 minutes against Spencer Lee from bottom position? I think no. I think either way, give me the wrestlers.
You have also Tyler.
Plus the wrestling team hates me for my Luca Garza put your mask on tweet, so I'm trying to
they do.
Good graces.
Kluve is also trained to use his hands, and he's a weight training guy, so he's going to be schooled in some of the arts. Spencer Lee gets his leg in. I think it's over. I think it's over, and I think Tyler gets tilted a few times.
Oh, Tyler's going to Tilt-Town. There's no doubt he's going to Tilt-Town.
He's going to give me a noogie next time he sees me. But I think I would get Eric. I'll talk to Eric and get him on. Maybe he'll regale us. He's been kind of my ace in the hole with that story. If I ever got a chance to do it,
yeah.
To me, I think the number I would have called it number one. And everybody would have said P, but I would have called it number one just because that's the big dog. That was the big dog days for Iowa wrestling, Iowa basketball, and hell, you could put football in there. And if I were still on the beat, I would ask Ferentz about what he heard, back then. I think he was still around for that. And I imagine, him knowing, he knew some wrestlers. He was a big fan, or still is a big fan. I'll bet he would have had some fun with it, but I'll bet he heard about it.
Of course.
I'll bet everybody heard about it.
If a little kid in West Branch, Iowa hears about it, everybody there heard about it.
Before the internet.
Before the internet, right. Want to thank our sponsors, Heartlandflags.com. Check out their website. Yeah, they've got flags of your favorite sports team, college, pro, what have you. But they've also got, I was on their website right now, art planter pots, birdhouses and baths, decorative mailbox covers, door decorations, garden angels, home accessories, windmills and balloon spinners, and yard wind spinners. I know, Mark, you need some of that.
John, I have an idea I have an idea for a flag, and we'll talk about it. I'll email you. It's just kind of a cool idea. Maybe it'll be something. Maybe it'll just be maybe this is a silly idea for no man. But I'll run it by you. I'll run it by you.
Yep. I'm downside unseen. Also, thank you to Fong's Pizza in Cedar Rapids, and also they have a location in Des Moines. And I'm planning to be up in the Eastern Iowa area sometime in mid-June, and I am planning on getting that crab rangoon pizza from Fong's that I've been salivating over ever since I heard it was a thing. And then I'm also looking forward to hitting up Barntown Brewing, barntownbrewing.com, and I'm going to try some of Pete's legendary root beer. Of course, you've had the more potent potables from Barntown.
I'm going to buy for the Gazette night sports staff. I'm going to buy them some Fong's first football week, high school football weekend, Friday. I'm going to buy those guys some because they work their asses off, and I want to feed them. My friend Sam is a great guy. Sam is a night sports editor, the copy editor at the Gazette, and Fong's kicks ass. I have to email Pete Faber, operator of Barntown. We're going to start a podcast together. I want to know. I'm looking at it this way, John. I'm a huge beer fan, and that's it. I'm not a brewer. I wouldn't even call myself a connoisseur. I know what I like, and I think you're a connoisseur. I'm a super fan, and I get to ask Pete, what the hell? And it's going to be a blast. Yeah. And so that, by the way, if you're in Cedar Rapids at Ben's Beverage Depot, they have a ton of Barntown Brewing right now. Go to there and buy that.
Awesome.
I bought a 4-pack of beer for sandwiches and hop skewer. I'm going to get into those. I'm going to try one of them tonight for sure.
You bought a 4-pack of beer for sandwiches.
That's what it's called. It's a lager. It sounds fantastic.
I was just sitting there seeing Mark, getting out the dairy, the
beer
cool
for sandwich.
I got a sandwich. It's a sandwich beer. I mean,
exactly.
Why not?
Exactly.
Why not?
Exactly.
All right. It's been good to be back doing this, Mark.
Yeah,
we'll do it again soon. And thanks to all of you for listening to this and checking out what we're doing at HawkeyePodcast.com. And this was fun to get the football back in my veins because now we're like 100 days away.
It is 100 days.
We record this.
100 days. You bet.
It's 100 days away. So now the numerical countdown stories can commence once you get to 100. Mark doesn't have to do the 146 or what? How many was that?
It was 143. KF
143. Wow. That was.
It was task. It was the win. Yeah, it was. But they weren't all huge. But it was a task. This thing is actually, you know what? For me, I did the look aheads at the Gazette. They're mostly for me,
right?
So I know what the hell is going on.
Well, it helps to sharpen the game. By the time we get up into August and September, we get in. It gets our mind sharp again because, especially, there was a season last year, but I will admit, and I watched all the games, and I have all of my faculties still. I almost don't remember a lot of what happened last year because it was so weird and funky, and we all know how weird and funky it was. So I might have to hit the old DVR and maybe even go back to the 2019 season, but probably more last year with Peaches. Oh, one more thing before we go. You've seen Spencer Petras working with a quarterback coach, the same quarterback coach that Nate Stanley worked with post Iowa career. What do you think about that?
I love the proactive look at that. I like that Spencer's doing it now and not after his career and before the combine like Nate Stanley. That's the wrong time to do it. And I'll tell you this, the whole Iowa and I don't blame Iowa coaches. And Scott and I talked to Ken O'Keefe about this. There is just simply not enough time to get to everything. They're coached in the fundamentals. They're coached in they have drills every day. They're coaching the fundamentals, but they don't get mechanical breakdowns. I remember Drew Tate's dad yelling at me about how they didn't talk mechanics, and his mechanics changed quite a bit after that oblique injury, which now we've referenced twice in this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's a good thing. I like the proactive nature of it. And will it matter? You know what? If I'm Spencer Petras, I have that sort of, resource, I'm tapping it all up because he's in a battle, man. He's in the battle for, it's the coaches aren't saying that it is, but we all know it's a battle.
Right. Yeah. No doubt about it. Yeah, I agree. I think it's, any work like that is good work. And Ken was saying there's not enough time. It's that there's not enough hours that can be, because they only have so many hours of face-to-face time with the kids by NCAA rules.
Right.
So Ken was saying there's not enough time to add quarterback fundamentals,
mechanic stuff. Yeah.
Mechanic stuff into that 20 hours a week or whatever it is they get.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Some schools have quarterbacks coaches, and
Iowa
I don't
does.
know.
Ken O'Keefe's a quarterback coach.
Well, that's true. He is.
But the mechanic stuff. I mean that goes back, and I'm not sure. I would love to know what the industry standard is for coaches, and I do think, John, when you have when you're Nick Saban, and I did the count after Iowa lost 10-3 at Michigan in 2019.
Mm.
The old coaches who are kind of coaches, what do they call them? Football assistants?
Alabama's, consultants or whatever. Yeah.
Consultants. If you get, you sign a coach to, okay, you're the mechanics guy this week. So that program, if you have an army of those guys, well, yeah, there is a guy who can talk to you about your mechanics. Or I think the number that stood out to me was, I think Michigan had like 5 special teams people to Iowa's 1 or 2. I don't know if Kevin Spencer was still around and LeVar Woods, but Michigan had like 5 coaches dedicated to special teams. Iowa had 2. So, and that's beefed up for Iowa. That's Ferentz using that coaching loophole there, but sometimes that shows up and little things like that. And
yeah, I mean, if you've got a guy,
when you have that resource, you can use it. You can tap it. Not all programs have that.
Right. If you've got a guy whose primary job it is to analyze cut-ups every practice, nothing but the footwork and throwing fundamentals of their quarterback, that's a big advantage.
Yep.
And to me, since quarterback's the most important position of any in team sports, might not be a bad gig. I don't know.
Iowa does have some younger guys, a couple of guys who were signaling plays. Maybe they do some stuff like that.
Right. That's fair, Mark.
But they weren't doing it after 2019.
Right. Maybe they've changed that.
Maybe they did it next year, but obviously, Spencer's looking into it. I think if you're a quarterback, you really give yourself an advantage. I was really surprised Stanley didn't do that.
Right.
I'm not sure Beathard did. Rudock certainly did. And so I was talking to Stanley like, oh, you don't have a quarterback guy, do you? No, it's my dad. And so that always really that. I think when you get on this level, you got to have every advantage. You got to be able to take advantage of everything. And I think that's smart. Good for Spencer.
No,
again, proactive. It is.
Spencer has the raw physical abilities. He's got the arm. And it's just last year we all saw it. He was never consistently comfortable.
No, I would agree.
And he pressed. And when you press, your technique goes out. And then it starts with your feet. And if your feet aren't right, your arm slot is never going to be right. And there were with clarity at times last year, like second half of the Illinois game, where he looked like a witch. But it's just that when your mind's not quite right, your technique's going to suffer. But if your technique isn't to a point where it's consistent, then your mind's going to suffer, and it's a negative feedback loop. Hopefully this type of preparation and work for him will pay mental dividends that he can fall back on and remember, okay, did this, got to get into my zen. I'm chill, and away we go. Because, hey, if he can come out and exceed my expectations, because I'm not overly I'm not expecting A-level play from Iowa's quarterback position this year. I'm just not. But if he can exceed my expectations, this team has a chance to win 10 games. I
can tell you from doing this project, they faced kick-ass secondaries in the first 2 games.
Again, 1-1. Just give me 1-1, and then everything's in play. All right. Good talking to you, Mark. We will chat at you down the line.